from this point on, my fortunes changed. My aunt took me to the home of Mr. Wickfield, her lawyer and advisor, who lived in Canterbury.
David, this gentleman is Mr. Wickfield.
How do you do, sir?
Well, Mistress Trotwood. So this is the lad, eh? Your own nephew?
Yes, and I propose that he receive the kind of tutorage a Copperfield should. Now then, Mr. Wickfield, do I understand that there is a boys' school of good quality nearby?
You do, madam. A very high repute, too. Its headmaster is Dr. Strong, a very good friend.
Then it's settled. The boy will go there. Do you hear, David?
Yes, Aunt Betsy.
But there's one small detail, Mistress Trotwood. There's no room to board the lad at the school.
Nonsense. They'll make room. Or else...
No, Mistress Trotwood. No need to worry. Your nephew can stay here.
Here? At your house?
Why not? My house is roomy enough.
Yes, a good arrangement. I'm very grateful, Mr. Wickfield. Very grateful.
Not at all, Mistress Trotwood.
Well, lad, where's your tongue?
Oh, thank you, sir.
That's better, David. Now, before I go, there's something I must say to you.
Yes, Aunt Betsy?
Never be mean in anything, David. Never be false, and never be cruel. Avoid these 3 vices, lad, and I'll be proud of you. Now then, kiss your old aunt. God bless you, child, and keep you.
My aunt left, and I was feeling a strange sensation of loneliness when an apparition startled me. There was a red-headed youth whose hair was cropped to a close stubble, with hardly any eyebrows, no eyelashes at all, and eyes that shifted from side to side. He was high-shouldered and bony, dressed in sober black, and there was an oily smile on his cadaverous face as he stretched out a long, lank, skeleton hand.
You're Master Copperfield, I take it?
Yes.
Oh, I'm Uriah Heep. I take care of Mr. Wickfield's accounts.
Oh, well, I'm very pleased to meet you, Mr. Heep. Are you a lawyer like Mr. Wickfield?
Oh, no. I'm a very humble person, very. How much I have to be thankful for Mr. Wickfield's benevolence in giving me employment and in giving me the teaching of law besides.
Well, perhaps you'll be a partner of Mr. Wickfield someday.
Oh, thank you, Master Copperfield, for saying that. But no, I'm too humble. Much too humble. Very much so, if I may say so. I know my place. I want only to serve Mr. Wickfield, quite diligent in my poor, humble capacity.
Oh, I didn't know this room was...
Mistress Agnes, this is Master Copperfield. He's going to live with us.
How do you do, Master Copperfield?
I'm pleased to meet you, Mistress Agnes.
Now, I must go to labor in your father's service, Mistress Agnes. Bless Mr. Wickfield, but he's not as well as he used to be, and his accounts fall a bit in arrears, they do. I'll humbly say good night to both of you then.
Good night.
Good night.
What do you think of Uriah, Master David?
Well, I hardly know him.
I'm afraid of him. I hate him. Yes, I hate him.
Mistress Agnes.
Wherever I go, his eyes follow me about. When he touches me, I feel shivers up my back. And I'm afraid, dreadfully afraid for Father.
Mr. Wickfield?
Yes. Uriah Heep means to ruin him someday. He has some kind of power over my father now.
He has? What is it?
I don't know. But sometimes I see Father sitting across from Uriah, going over the estate accounts. There's fear in his eyes. And Uriah Heep watches my father and watches him. And he smiles. That awful, awful smile.
The years passed, and the day came when my education was completed, and I bade Mr. Wickfield, Agnes, and yes, Uriah Heep goodbye, to take up my career in the law office of Spenlow and Jorkins in London. This again was my blessed Aunt Betsy's doing. And the night before I was to enter the office, I had a long talk with my aunt, and I was shocked by the news that she gave me.
You see, David, I can no longer help you with material means.
I no longer want your help, Betsy. You've been over-generous as it is.
No, my boy. My intent is good, but my resources, they've been frittered away.
Well, Archie, you mean all that money in trust with Mr. Whitfield?
Aye, lad, it's gone. Frittered away. I'm ruined, near penniless.
Why, Betsy.
David, you lived at Mr. Whitfield these last years. What's come over the man? What's he done with my legacy? Has he taken to drink or gambling? Or has there been a weakness of character that I never knew? Tell me, what's come over the man?
It's not Mr. Whitfield, Aunt Betsy. Mr. Whitfield had charge of your legacy only technically. The Uriah Heep had charge of Mr. Whitfield. I resolved then that I would move heaven and earth to alleviate my aunt's misfortune. And it was while I apprenticed in law at Spenlow and Jorkins that I once again ran across my old friend, Mr. Micawber. He who had sheltered me in London when I worked in misery at the counting house. As usual, he was destitute, the sheriff hot upon his heels. But as usual, he was the finest friend I ever knew. The next evening, I visited Mr. and Mrs. Micawber at their quarters. Oh, it's good to see you both again.
Thank you, Mr. Copperfield.
Tell me, Mr. Micawber, what are your prospects?
I have always said, Copperfield, that if Wilkins Micawber waited long enough, something would turn up. And something has turned up. I am about to become solvent.
You, solvent? Why, I'm overwhelmed. How did this good fortune come about?
Well, let us begin at the beginning, Copperfield.
A proper place to begin.
Precisely, my bird. To begin with, Copperfield, I began as a broker in corn. The corn, shall we say, proved mealy. And the corn commission business, while gentlemanly, was not remunerative. And so...
In short, Mr. Copperfield, the same story. Here is Mr. Micawber with a variety of talent. I should say genius, but that may be the partiality of a wife. Come what may, I'll never leave Mr. Micawber.
Really, my love?
Pray, my dear, allow me to conclude.
Yes.
Of talent, Mr. Micawber has much. Of capital, none. And thus, Mr. Micawber has long been without suitable position or employment. Where does the responsibility rest? Why, clearly on society. If society would not avail itself of Mr. Micawber's talent through ignorance, then we would inform society of it.
Yes, I determined that I would throw down the gauntlet to the world.
In short, Mr. Copperfield, we advertise.
Advertise?
Precisely. In the public press. And in my own forthright prose. And finally, my boy, we received a response. In due time, I shall pay for the advertisement with the proceeds of this response. Although I must say the editors wait impatiently.
Well, what is your employment? And where, Mr. Micawber?
Why, it's in Canterbury, for one thing.
Oh, Canterbury, yes, I know it well. And your employer?
Oh, a fine gentleman of great discernment, Mr. Copperfield.
His name?
Mr. Uriah Heep.
Uriah Heep.
You know him, Copperfield?
Only too well. Now, listen to me, both of you. That man's a scoundrel.
If he pays cash for services rendered, I am not the man to be finicky.
Oh, Mrs. Micawber, I appeal to you.
I have perfect confidence in Mr. Micawber's talent to meet any exigency, Mr. Copperfield. We appreciate your solicitude. Indeed, we're touched by it. But we're leaving tomorrow morning for Canterbury to take up our new station. For you know I'll never leave Mr. Micawber.
This was a blow. It was soon to be followed by another, much more stunning in its impact. By accident, I ran into Agnes Whitfield in the lobby of a London theater. Her beauty took my breath away, and I stood there, stunned. I greeted her with a glad cry. Agnes! Agnes, my darling.
David. Why, it's David Copperfield.
Why, I can't believe it. When I left, you were just a little girl. Now you're a glorious woman.
The years have passed, David. You too have grown.
Oh, you know, I've thought of you so often. Very often. I thought of coming up to Canterbury to see you, but something or other always intervened.
I wish you had come, David. Oh, David, I wish you had.
What is it, my dear? Has something happened? Your father, he is well.
No, David. I regret he's not. He's ailing.
Oh, I am sorry. What is his trouble, Agnes?
His trouble? Uriah Heep has become Father's partner.
What? That blackguard? Mr. Whitfield's partner?
They signed the articles last week. I don't think Father even knew what he was doing. Uriah Heep has some power over him. And worth.
Agnes, what do you mean?
I believe Uriah Heep is going to ask me to marry him.
You? Marry you? That ogre?
Please, David, say no more. I must consider the offer if he makes it.
Agnes, listen to me, please. I know how you hate him. You despise him. Surely a sweet, dear girl like you would not for a moment consider that man Heep
David.
as...
Oh, David, my dear, I have no choice.
What do you mean?
Uriah Heep has hinted that if I reject his advances, he'll ruin Father and send him to prison.
The weeks passed, and each day in London was torture. My heart and mind were in Canterbury, in the house of Mr. Wickfield, my aunt's lawyer and advisor. And so one day I journeyed to Canterbury to see what I might do. Uriah Heep was not in the house at the moment, and I went directly to Mr. Micawber. Oh, good evening, Miss Micawber.
Why, it's Copperfield.
Oh, it's good to see you, Mr. Micawber. I want to talk to you about Uriah Heep.
A moment, Copperfield. Caution, my young friend. Say no more till I close this door.
Now then, Mr. Micawber, tell me, how has Uriah Heep treated you?
Well, my dear Copperfield, a man who labors under financial embarrassment to another is, well, shall we say, at a disadvantage, and especially when that man has drawn from his employer certain stipends of money before those stipends are strictly due and payable.
Yes, just as I feared. Now you're obligated to him. Now he has you under his thumb.
Oh, tut, my boy. You underestimate Wilkins Micawber.
Mr. Micawber, listen. Uriah Heep has compromised Mr. Wickfield, ruined my Aunt Betsy Trotwood of her worldly estate.
Pardon me, Copperfield. I am here in a capacity of confidence, a position of trust, a discussion of some topics. Even with Mrs. Micawber herself, it's out of the question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Micawber.
You must understand my position, my boy. Much as I should like to...
Well, welcome to my good friend, Master Copperfield. Welcome to my humble home. Micawber?
Yes, Mr. Heep?
I don't want you around here. Go into the study and straighten those accounts.
That was my intention, Mr. Heep. Precisely my intention to straighten them. At the moment, they seem to be quite crooked.
Impudent jackanapes. A clerk should be humble, not impudent. And now, Master Copperfield, you should be the first, since I consider you my closest friend.
I?
Yes, to be sure, and more than that, my closest rival.
In what matter?
In the matter of Agnes Wickfield.
Indeed?
Yes, humble as I am, the image of Agnes has been in my breast for years.
You're taking much for granted, Uriah.
Oh, no, Master Copperfield. I'm still an humble man, but I rest a good deal of hope on Agnes observing how useful I've been to her father.
You've used her father to compromise her?
Oh, no, Master Copperfield. I'm much too humble and simple for any such thing. You see, her father, Mr. Wickfield, has been a little, imprudent in certain business affairs.
You'll never carry it off, Uriah Heep. That I promise you.
Indeed? Well, we shall see at dinner tonight. There comes a time when even an humble person like myself must speak out for all to hear.
Dinner was a nightmare. Toward the end, Uriah Heep rose, a glass in his hand.
I'm an humble individual, to give you her health. I refer to your charming daughter, Mr. Wickfield. I admire and adore her, and long have... Well, shall I put it this way? To be her father is a proud distinction, but to be her husband...
No, Heep, no.
Constrain your impulses, sir. They're expensive. You've spilled our best china plate and beakers on the floor in your haste.
You dare think of marrying Agnes?
What's the matter, Mr. Wickfield? You've not gone mad, I hope. If I say I have an ambition to make your Agnes my Agnes, I have as good a right to it as another man, and I'm properly humble about it. But I may say I've a better right than any other man.
You blackguard! David, Agnes, before me. Look at him. Because of him, I've lost my name and my reputation, my peace and quiet, house and home.
These are words, Mr. Wickfield, spoken orally. They don't tell a story like names and figures in ledgers and account books.
Uriah, please, can't you see Father's ill?
Oh, yes, Agnes. In my humble opinion, he's very ill. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm a very humble person, and I can wait. Yes, indeed. Oh, I can wait.
I begged Agnes to come away with me, confessed my love to her. She wept, but she refused steadfastly to leave her father's side. With desperate resolve, I talked to Mr. Micawber, explained Uriah Heep's evil intention, my own love for Agnes. I knew the struggle he was going through. His first chance to be solvent had been his goal, hardly won and very precious. Now I was asking him to throw aside his position for the sake of honor. But still, he wouldn't say anything. So I went to London, and to my surprise, a few days later, Mr. Micawber hurried into my office to see me.
Copperfield, I'm blanched with shame. I am lonely and penniless. The latter condition I can tolerate through experience, but the former, no. I repeat, Copperfield, I'm intolerably lonely. Mrs. Micawber has left me.
What? But she always said she'd never leave you.
Alas, yes, my young friend. But she referred to matters of pecuniary embarrassment alone. When she heard the story of Heep's plotting and your romantic frustration, she insisted that I tell all I knew. I disdained. Ergo, she left.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Micawber.
Thank you, Copperfield. But I cannot proceed without her. Therefore, I ask you to come back to Canterbury at once.
And there?
There we shall take up the matter of Trotwood, Wickfield, Agnes Wickfield, and Copperfield, and Wilkins Micawber versus the defendant and scoundrel, Uriah Heep.
And so it was that I arranged to travel to the house of Mr. Wickfield, taking my Aunt Betsy with me. We all gathered in the spacious main hall with Mr. Micawber and Agnes present as well, Mr. Wickfield being abed ill. And a servant was sent to summon Uriah Heep. When he came in, a great look of surprise and then suspicion came to his face.
What's the meaning of all this?
Uriah Heep, it is time for an accounting. Justice cry is allowed to be heard. Honor beckons. Let the escutcheon be clean.
I see. So all of you have conspired, eh? You've bribed my stupid clerk to unloose the clacking of his tongue against this humble person. You too, Agnes?
I am a spectator.
A spectator to justice as applied to your humble person?
Drat the man. Must you forever bumble of being humble, Uriah Heep?
You're impertinent, Mrs. Trotwood, for a penniless woman.
How dare you, Uriah?
I have a good mind to box your humble ears with this, my humble umbrella.
Aunt Betsy, please.
Well, then, let's get on with it. Now, you were saying, Mr. Micawber.
Thank you, Mrs. Trotwood. I was saying that although I, too, am enmeshed in this ogre's toils, I must speak out.
For which we are ever grateful to you, sir.
I'll have you in a debtor's prison tomorrow for this, Micawber.
A familiar place to Wilkins Micawber, Heep. A touch of home, so to speak. But as I was saying, and to all parties concerned, you, Heep, have caught Mr. Wickfield in an infernal web. You have distorted his accounts and forged his signature, forced his back to the wall, and stolen the monies of his divers confidence, including Mistress Trotwood here.
You lie, Micawber.
Do I, Heep? Then listen, Heep. I have in my actual possession various entries, books, and documents with the name of Mr. Wickfield affixed to.
Huh?
But easily proven to be written in your own flowing hand. I have a pocketbook which contains a document fatal to you.
That's a falsehood. I burned that.
Pardon me, Heap, that was your impression, not the fact. I rescued said document from the flames. It reposes in a safe place for proper gentlemen in legal wigs to view at an appropriate moment. Must I go on, Heap?
Now, Micawber, you've got me.
Well, Uriah, the jig is up.
Aye, Master Copperfield. I fear I've aspired too high. I've looked above my humble station.
You have indeed.
And now, Heap, you'll repose in a humble jail and eat humble pie.
Yes, Micawber, but you'll go with me.
Pardon me, Heap, but he will not. I shall stand redress for his debts, and I assure you by virtue of my legal training that Mr. Micawber will bear no onus or penalty for exposing a blackguard like yourself.
Thank you, Copperfield. You are, as usual, a true friend, and I am affectionately yours. But now I must leave you all and send a letter post-haste to Mrs. Micawber to return to the haven of her husband. With her, Wilkins Micawber is a man to be reckoned with. But without her, he is nothing. Good evening, all.
David,
Yes, Agnes. What is it?
you've done us a great service. My father and I would...
Oh, what I did was to serve my darling. Mr. Wickfield, your father's one of my oldest friends. Besides, it was Mr. Micawber who risked everything.
Yes, everything to regain the love of his wife. Such love is a precious thing.
Such a love is deep and everlasting. It's without pride. It's tender. Yes, and burning. It's overwhelming.
Oh, David.
Yes, Agnes. And my heart is full of such a love for you. And now that you're free to do as you choose, may I have your promise? May I hope?
Hope? No, you may not hope. You may have certainty.
There's little more to tell, for this is the end of my story. Mr. and Mrs. Micawber are still a jump ahead of the bailiff, and occasionally I have the honor to bail him out of debtor's prison. And as for me, Agnes and I are journeying along the road to life, happy and secure, with our children and our friends around us. But so much for the past. It's the future that beckons now.
And so the curtain falls on Copperfield the Man, based on the later life of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. This is Robert Anthony Dean, reminding you that front row seats are reserved for you the next time our curtain rises on another romantic classic, presented for your favorite listening pleasure by your Playhouse of Favorites.